One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Albert Camus. Of all the conclusions a philosopher has ever drawn, few are as quietly devastating and as strangely liberating as this one. A man condemned by the gods to roll a boulder up a hill for eternity, only to watch it fall back down, only to begin again. And Camus tells us to imagine him happy. Not defeated, not broken, happy. To understand why, we must first understand the world Camus believed we all inhabit. A world that does not answer us. Albert Camus was a French-Algerian philosopher, novelist, and Nobel Prize laureate, writing in the shadow of the Second World War. In 1942, he published The Myth of Sisyphus, not as a work of despair, but as a direct confrontation with the most urgent philosophical question he believed any human being could face: whether life is worth living. He called the central problem of his philosophy the absurd. The absurd is not the world itself. The world is neither cruel nor kind. It is simply silent. What is absurd is the collision between the human need for meaning, for clarity, for purpose, and the universe's complete indifference to that need. We cry out for answers. The universe offers nothing, and we continue anyway. Camus described this with extraordinary precision. I don't know whether this world has a meaning that transcends it, but I know that I cannot know that meaning, and that it is impossible for me just now to know it. This is not pessimism. It is honesty, and from that honesty everything else follows. The absurd, Camus argued, does not arise from the world alone, nor does it arise from the human mind alone. It arises precisely because both exist simultaneously, the yearning mind inside the silent universe, each pressing against the other with no resolution. To destroy one side of this equation is to destroy the absurd itself. And this is exactly what most people attempt to do. There are two common escapes, and Camus rejected both completely. The first is physical suicide. If life has no meaning, why continue? Camus takes this question with absolute seriousness. He does not dismiss it, but he concludes that suicide is a surrender. It is the ultimate acceptance of the absurd verdict, agreeing that life is indeed intolerable. It resolves the tension by eliminating the one who feels it. For Camus, this is not a solution. It is a capitulation. The second escape is what he called philosophical suicide. This is the subtler, more common path. It is the moment a person, confronted with the silence of the universe, leaps into faith, into ideology, into any system of belief that promises meaning from the outside. Religion, dogma, the comfort of ready-made answers. Camus was not an atheist, he famously stated. I do not believe in God, and I am not an atheist. He understood the impulse entirely. But he saw the leap of faith as a refusal to sit with the tension, to remain honest, to keep the absurd alive. It is, in his view, a kind of mental surrender. Both escapes resolve the unbearable by abandoning the struggle. Camus wanted something harder, something more honest. He wanted revolt. To live with the absurd is to revolt against it, not by overcoming it, but by refusing to be destroyed by it. The absurd man does not pretend the tension is resolved. He holds it. He looks directly at the silence of the universe and chooses, in full consciousness, to continue. Not because he has found meaning, but because the search itself, the living itself, is its own form of defiance. Camus draws from the absurd three essential consequences. Revolt, we must never accept any final answer or false reconciliation. Freedom, stripped of the burden of ultimate purpose, we are radically, completely free to think and act as we choose. And passion, we must pursue life with intensity, filling it with rich and varied experience, not because it lasts, but because it is ours. The only way to deal with an unfree world is to become so absolutely free that your very existence is an act of rebellion. But it is in the image of Sisyphus where Camus finds his purest expression. Of all of this, Sisyphus was a king in Greek mythology. Cunning, defiant, a man who cheated death twice and was punished for his audacity. The gods condemned him to Tartarus, where for eternity he would roll a great boulder to the summit of a hill, only for it to roll back down the moment he reached the top. He would descend. He would begin again, forever. On the surface, this is a portrait of futility, a punishment designed to crush the human spirit through endless, meaningless repetition. And yet, Camus sees something else entirely in Sisyphus, particularly in that moment of descent. The walk back down the hill, the brief pause before the struggle begins again. In that moment, Sisyphus is lucid. He knows exactly what awaits him. He has no illusions. And yet he turns and walks back toward the boulder. This, Camus tells us, is where his greatness lives. Not in the pushing, in the returning. There is no fate that cannot be surmounted by scorn. Sisyphus becomes the ideal absurd hero, not because his task is meaningful, but because he refuses to be defined by its meaninglessness. His boulder is his hill is his struggle, repeated into infinity, belongs entirely to him. And in that ownership, in that defiant, eyes-open embrace, he becomes superior to his fate. This is not merely mythology. It is a mirror. Camus saw the Sisyphean condition everywhere in modern life, in the rhythm of days that never truly change. Rising, working, eating, sleeping, and then beginning again. Monday bleeding into Tuesday, bleeding into another year. Most of us move through this rhythm without question. And then one day, without warning, the question arrives. Why? That moment of weariness, that sudden awareness of the repetition. Camus called it the awakening. It is not a crisis to be suppressed. It is the beginning of genuine consciousness. The absurd does not announce itself with thunder. It arrives quietly, in an ordinary moment, and changes everything. The absurd man is not the one who avoids this feeling. He is the one who walks directly into it and refuses to look away. What Camus ultimately offers is not a philosophy of despair. It is a philosophy of defiance. A refusal to demand that the universe justify itself. A willingness to love the life we have without waiting for it to explain itself to us. He is not asking us to be happy in the way we typically understand happiness. Comfortable, secure, certain. He is asking us to be awake. To carry our boulders with full knowledge of what we are doing. And to find in that very act something that no external meaning could ever provide. Because the struggle toward the heights, the daily, unglamorous, relentless pushing, is not a punishment we must endure until we find the answer. It is the answer. The struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy.